Hi everyone, Darren Hunter here, and I'm with the one and only Michael Sands, and this is the Outsourced PM podcast show. And Michael, I'm really blown away. We've done something like certainly over 10 episodes right now. I should have had the number, but I don't. But we're getting so much traction with these. People are listening to the podcasts, and I think you're getting calls from people that not only are using VAs already, but you're getting people contacting you that have never used a VA, but now they want to consider that.
Yeah, a lot of people are curious, and I guess, Darren, some of the feedback is they've been listening, knowing that this is an option that they should be investigating. They've got team members that are resigning. There's the great resignation of property managers who want to work from home, being forced to work in the office. And so offices are now making that change. And I guess the volume of calls and inquiries that are coming through, just based around this podcast especially, is phenomenal. I'm just glad that we can help so many people.
I agree. And I guess we've been tackling this podcast show. And if you just go to our Outsourced PM podcast show, you can go to iTunes or Spotify or Podbean, or just go to the inspiredgrowthtraining.com or even teamsbydesign.com website. Go to podcast, you'll find it there. But we've really tackled two major things. Number one are the things that people have an issue with, or the speed bump in their head. We call them mindset issues. Things like, well, people are concerned about using a virtual assistant because they think their tasks aren't going to be done accurately, or it's going to take too long to train, or they're concerned about English skills, and so on and on and on it goes. And we're also tackling how, seeding everyone's imagination around that virtual assistants can handle just about nearly every type of process in property management that doesn't require a location-based factor, like doing an inspection at an address or going to show someone through a property. Virtual assistants can handle everything else. So I guess we're going to put another issue on the table today. This is something that people can have a speed bump in their head over before they're willing or wanting to take on a virtual assistant. Let's talk about security and privacy. So I guess, Michael, in our pre-chat before we launched into this podcast, we identified there's really two types of issues we're going to deal with around security and privacy, and they're the things that are a genuine concern, and there are things there we just got to slay the dragons because they're just concerns that don't exist. And I think we need to blow those away as well. So let's just get started talking about concerns about security. And Michael, one of the big things that you say comes up regularly is the concern over the database. So from your position where you've managed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of virtual assistants over your many, many years, tell me why that's not a concern.
Well, just to start with, when we're talking about privacy and security, as an agency owner, someone who's been in property management for almost 20 years now, and I've seen it all, the biggest threat isn't virtual assistants, Darren. The biggest threat are the staff in office that have, they've been burnt, they've been scorned, there's malicious to a relationship. So if you're talking about, Darren, I've got this database of 1,000 landlords, I think the real threat and worry comes from the staff within. There, I said it, but that's where my concern would always be, because they know what to do with the database. They are more likely when they leave the business to try and, bring clients across. Not everyone, I'm generalizing, but that's where the problem really starts.
Because they've got motive, right?
They got motive.
The VAs likely haven't got any motive.
Darren, they don't even know what to do with the data. Like, they got no one to sell it to. They don't even understand the rent roll. They're task-based. They're happy that they have employment. They love culture. Their motivation is different. I mean, you're talking about cost of living is different. Motivation in Australia, New Zealand, UK, America, the compensation is a driving, culture. Yeah, of course, but different motivations. So when you're talking about privacy breaches and security, look at home first, right? That's where I'd be focusing.
Yeah, I agree. I've been using virtual assistants now since 2007 for all sorts of things, assistant work, right through to bookkeeping. I've never had an issue. I've only ever once had an issue where I believe someone's used my database inappropriately, and that was an Australian-based team member. So again, it's right. It's really those team members in office that may have motive to want to access that database, and that could be because they're moving on to another employment. Now, in our business, Michael, we use HubSpot, and if I want to get a database or I download a spreadsheet from our database, the settings will actually send me, if someone requests a download, the system sends me the email. So they don't get the email. So in a database system like we use, there are settings that we can go in and protect ourselves against people inappropriately in the team getting access to the spreadsheet, or people that you don't want them to have access to. But Michael, aside from that, Property Me and Property Tree, the well-known property management softwares used, they're setting security in there too.
It's all the same. I mean, you can't. I remember, like, I would go to download on Property Tree, like the database, and it would prompt me with security, and then it would only send it to my email address. Like, no one in my company could, not even my VA support staff, could access any of that data. I mean, they could go on and have a look at individual owners and things like that. But again, like, what are they going to do with it? Like, what are they going to do? And I've been outsourcing for, 15 odd years. And yes, there are countries that would concern me with data like that, but they don't have access to credit cards. There's nothing you can do with a bank account. They don't have like driver's license information. They don't have any of that sensitive information from landlords and so on. Yes, tenants give all that information when they do application processing, but there are things we put in place, Darren, to wipe out so much of this. And the Philippines is fantastic. They genuinely would be concerned if they made a mistake.
So everyone out there, if you're thinking about virtual assistants, but you've got an issue around security and privacy, let's just put a big tick next to that one. All right. Let's now knock that domino over. Let's move on to the next one. And let's talk about banking and trust accounts. And of course, we've got trust accounts, we've got Property Me, Property Tree, and we've also got Console Cloud. I have to say, if people are, that are working in the banking areas, there's security settings in those, right? But even so, the big rule I've always had is that only bosses have access to the accounts. Team members don't get access to bank accounts.
I mean, when you think of it, Darren, so we provide bookkeepers, accountants to agencies. So, the accountants and the bookkeepers have access to all the general accounts, everything, Xero, Quicken, MyOb, like all those platforms. They need access to information like that. But the way the world is now, all your banking information gets pulled to a lot of your CRMs and Property Tree, Property Me, when you're on the cloud. But again, there's my rule was always, you do the bank transfer, Darren, right? It's okay for the VA support staff to work out the numbers, go through that. That's their role with that particular task, but give you the banking file, you do it. And, so I banked with Macquarie before I banked with ANZ. Both of them, and Westpac, all of them, gave me dongles. So I could give you access, Darren. You could log into the bank. You could have a look at whatever you wanted, but you couldn't touch anything. You couldn't transfer a cent out without the dongle, right? So it gave me the confidence there. And there's a level of trust that you're giving your support staff, but they're there for a reason to make life easier for you. We actually have clients, and I tell clients, you do the bank transfer, but we do the bank transfer for them. Right. And that's the level of trust that they've got. And the vetting process that we go through with all the VA support staff is quite unique and thorough. I mean, I know what other outsourcing companies' recruitment process is like, Darren, and it is a walk in the park for people to get a job. A walk in the park. We turn down more people that apply than get a job.
Yeah. And let's just keep on talking about this as well with trust accounts and accounts. And, when I'm paying bills, I'm getting asked all the time to check a 4-digit or a 6-digit code on my SMS with a 2-step verification. So there's so much security in place now that you only give access to your bank account to, maybe you or only trusted people on the ground, but you don't give access to that to your virtual assistants overseas. You just never do that. Now, what about credit cards? And that sort of security, Michael? I mean, really, this should be a non-existent threat.
Darren, my team basically have all my credit cards. They have access to my credit cards because I get them to book things for me. And, if they ever need something, I'm like, here's my credit card. Like, I'll delete the information as soon as you send it to me, Michael. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You might need to use it again. But I've got fraud protection on credit cards. Visa and MasterCard and Amex, they all have fraud protection. But you don't even have to think that level. It's trust, right? It's what can somebody do? And if you're really concerned, have like a Visa debit MasterCard with a floating limit of like $500 on there. And then that's the card that your VA would use. And when you want them to buy something with it, you top money onto there. But which I also have international cards, Darren, and in the Philippines and so on. And I put money on there for the team. And there's trust. As far as banking goes, your trust account is pulled through to most CRMs these days. So there's visibility there. But they don't know what to do with it. They've got no practical application. There's no value for them to sell it. Right? You're still governed by Australian laws. It's not just because someone's abroad doesn't mean that you can't take action to protect yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very careful about who credit cards go to. And I do have one trusted VA in the Philippines who's worked me for so many years now that does have access to a credit card, and she does dummy purchases on our purchasing platform with our product, so she can do tests. And then she immediately refunds it. But she does have access. But again, trust is a must first between you and that person before you. Same with any staff member. You've got to have trust first before you'd ever do something like that. Okay, otherwise you just don't. Okay, next. So again, we talked about software systems are very intricate these days on settings. That there is a whole rank of settings that you really need to get into, whether it's Property Me or Property Tree or Console Cloud or whatever system you're using. Get in there and know what settings you've got there, so you know what control you have, what a master admin has, what another user has, and what they don't have. And they're very intricate, and that you can give you so much control. So get to know those. Now, I guess, Michael, a lot of this security stuff really comes down to, it's no different from the same security threats that you may have with an in-office team member, right? But the difference with the VA, certainly with the Teams by Design VAs, is let's just talk about the screen recording software. So you've got your virtual assistants getting all of their work completely screenshot and recorded all the time, whereas an in-office team member on the ground wouldn't. So what extra security measures have you got with the virtual assistants? What is that software? Tell us about that.
There's definitely a lot of blind trust that goes on with people that are in office or typically working from home now with COVID. There's a lot of trust there, and there should be that trust. What we do with our virtual staff is way more thorough than what you would expect, because it's not that we don't trust our team, but we track productivity, efficiency. We do screen grabs every minute, every 2 minutes, 3 minutes, depending on our settings. We take a photo of the person sitting at the desk to make sure that they're there. We do it for a number of reasons, Darren, because if someone's stuck and they freeze, they may not know how to ask for help. So if we can see that, okay, they haven't done any activity for 15 minutes or half an hour, hey, Darren, is there something we can help you with? We see there hasn't been any activity. We check keyboard strokes, mouse clicks. We check for software that falls to be clicks and strokes. Again, and we test. We actually do periodic testing. We download different softwares, applications that could try and mirror someone using a computer, just to make sure that we have the tech to pull that up, so that no one is trying to, be difficult. But
or dummy work or whatever, you can pick that up, but you're taking a screen photo every few minutes, right? So you can actually see if they're doing clicks on the keyboard, you can actually see what they're doing. So if I'm a boss and I ring up and say, hey, Michael, we've got a bit of an issue with Margaret on XYZ, you can immediately go to this software and start seeing what work they were doing, correct?
Yeah, correct. I can pull up the screen, at the time. I can see how the screen changes. I can drill down on it. But we also record every phone call that we make. So, you say, Michael, we spoke to someone 4 days ago at this time. What's the phone number? Great, bang. I'll pull up the file recording, because it's important. We have greater visibility over virtual staff than most offices have over their staff. Most agencies I speak to, and I say, yeah, we record phone calls because we listen to empathy, sympathy, making sure they're answering the questions. And they're like, what? you record calls. Wow, we should be doing that. I'm like, well, yeah, you probably should be. What are your staff saying to your clients? That is unchecked, totally unchecked. So your virtual assistant staff, they're more scrutinized than people in your office. They're more compliant than people in your office. They don't know what to do with the data that's there in the first place. And, they're so happy to be part of a culture.
But the security is huge. So what you're actually saying to people out there that are thinking, oh, look, I might have security issues or concerns with a virtual assistant. Well, what we're really saying here, with a level and depth of security control that you have over virtual assistants, that these employers or people in offices need to be more concerned with the security measures they don't have in place with their team members on the ground, right?
There's another outsourcing company, an Australian one based in the Philippines, and what they do is with their staff in office, they make their staff take off their watches, they make them take off their phones, and they get put into a foil box, and they can't have any of that while they work. So there are no watches, no phones, nothing at all. And that's kind of like over the top. Again, they don't specialize. I mean, they do real estate, but they don't specialize in real estate. And I guess, again, to get a job with those companies, it's very, very easy to get a job with those companies.
You're going to strip off all your technology, and it sounds like in the movies where they're counting money, or they're weighing their drugs up, and the people doing the work are stripped down to their underwear.
I see photos online and smiling, and then in the interviews when they come for jobs with us, they're like, "Oh my gosh, Michael, that was terrible because we felt like prisoners. We walk in and they scan us." So yeah, look, you can go to that level. You're not going to do it.
We don't, because with Teams by Design, we treat our people really well, and we treat them as like staff. We treat them like family, and we certainly, as much as we hear about it, goodness me, would never ever want to mirror that.
No, not at all. But again, we have other proactive steps, like we were saying, tracking their screens, their time, their efficiencies, letting them know what task and what they should be doing with the task, where to save information from. They don't have access to download lists. They don't have access to do any of that stuff. And there's no motivation there. I think that's quite key and clear.
Yeah. So I think we've really knocked that security concern, that domino down. And if anyone out there still has any concerns around security, just give Michael a call. But you can see, certainly with the Teams by Design people, there is a lot of security in place, a hell of a lot more than what you would expect with a team member working in an office. Okay, let's move on to privacy concerns. And you said that when virtual assistants start with you, now you said you scrutinize people really heavily through the application process. And I think you mentioned that you reject over 50% of applications that come to you. But when they do join Teams by Design, what's in the agreement that they sign?
Well, it'd be more about 9 in 10 people don't make it through, Darren.
Okay.
There's
So
a lot
it's
of people.
about 10% approval rate. That's massive.
And that's because we look for key characteristics and in the people. And also too, just touching quickly what we were talking about before, people that work in office, like local people on the ground, it's never a problem until they're about to resign, right? That's when bosses start thinking, oh, they non-compete. Oh, they can't do this. Oh, they can't do that. But offices should really have a strategy in place for their physical in-office staff, right? To make sure that they're compliant and consistent with virtual staff as also physical staff, because again, I think the greater threat is the people that know what to do with the data in the office, that have motive. So with privacy and when people sign up, when we do recruit, the NDA, Darren, the breach of privacy data, I mean, it probably scares them quite a bit. When they're signing the agreement, to kind of say, hey, you can't repeat any of this to anyone. Everything you learn and pick up during the course of employment here, that's private, confidential. And if they were to misstep, it would get very colourful.
Very severe. There's very severe ramifications for anyone. But it's made clear on the agreement, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay. And what about training around compliance, particularly in the UK, with the email rules and all of those sort of things there? How are you keeping up with that with your team?
So we follow local privacy laws. So UK, for example, GDPR, we follow that. I mean, Darren, I got to tell you, I've sent a few emails and I've accidentally CC'd them and not BCC'd in my time in property management. You know, when you're sending things out, and your heart goes to your gut, and so sometimes that just happens with humans being humans. But we give our team lessons around, making sure when you go to do emails, make sure you BCC, and when is the right and appropriate time to do such things. Following on, and sometimes those privacy guidelines around the world are tricky, but you just have to make sure that you're kind of training on it, giving people updates on it. We downloaded another course for privacy just a couple of weeks ago, actually, to update the team, like in the UK, on privacy measures, and we'll do the same with Australia in the next few weeks, making sure everyone is aware of the privacy matters.
So, okay, I mean, I think it's very clear out there, if you're thinking of taking on a virtual assistant, but you're concerned about security and privacy issues, well, don't be concerned any longer. Michael, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you to chat further?
Yeah, go to teamsbydesign.com, contact us, and drop us a message, and we'll book a time in to have a chat, have a catch up of any of your concerns, queries. If you're new to outsourcing, happy to help. We are getting a lot of people at the moment, Darren, who have virtual assistants or have had virtual assistants that haven't worked out. They haven't had the support or the guidance, and just not sure if what they're doing is the right process. Are they assigning the right tasks? And Darren, there are so many agents out there. I talk to them. Their virtual assistants don't even take phone calls because they're scared to put them on the phone. So I think there are a lot of people out there that are not using their virtual assistants to the maximum. They're not really tapping into the full potential. Yes. So give us a call.
All right, no worries. Well, that's really good. I think another good podcast topic there to add to the lineup. But now for everyone, for up to 30 different tasks that your virtual assistant can be doing for you, they can practically take up 80% of the workload of a typical property manager. Of course, they can't do what can only be done on the ground, like inspections and so forth. Just go to teamsbydesigntasks.com. That's teamsbydesigntasks.com and get that list. But all good. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Bye.